Hey guys, Darren Kai, coach of Wise Ocean Pods, and welcome back to another episode of the Wise Ocean Pods team review. Hopefully, you all had a great round 15. There were some pretty decent scores out there as the premiums were flying, but also some very disappointing scores from very capable players. So, we'll get into that very shortly. But my team, I did fairly well, a 1947. Put me up another 900 spots in terms of overall ranking. So again, moving in the right direction is a positive. Round rank of just inside the top 3K. Very, very nice. Good to see that I'm getting a bit more consistent being in this topper echelon of the coaches, the rounds. So yeah, very happy with how things are going at the moment. Probably left a fair few points on the field though this week, which is a bit disappointing. But look, at the end of the day, I'm a very unlikely chance to get to those top guys. So it's really just a bit more fun from now on. So how did my team go? I guess I'll go straight into the plus threes and negative threes. And my plus three, I'll go to Sam Doherty. No. I'll go Luke Jackson. I'll go Luke Jackson because it's a bit bittersweet, to be honest. Obviously, traded him in. Was very confident that he was always going to be the person I traded in. Yeah, he was always one I was bringing in on the Monday. Even before the news that Vizentini was being the solo ruck at Essendon, it was just always going to be the way that I was going with his run, his role, and everything. So I was very glad to see him come in, put up a massive 144, and just get the job done there. But it is bittersweet because I didn't go with the VC on him. I was tossing and turning the entire week. I was like, do I do it? Do I not do it? But ultimately, I looked at what his ceiling score had been for the in the past, and realistically, I don't think he had gone over 120. Like, I think he'd done it once in his career, so probably hadn't shown that he had the ceiling that I was looking for as a vice captain. So I ended up going with Brayshaw, which obviously that didn't turn out well. Lost me 40 points there. But then I doubled down and went to Bailey Smith as my C option, and that lost me even more points. So overall, left 50 points on the table there because I was a very close chance of doing Luke Jackson, but in hindsight, it's a great thing. I think a lot of people will say the exact same thing, right? So, but yeah, it's frustrating because I knew he was such a safe 120. It's just I didn't envision him kicking 3 goals at the same time. But we know he's a very good player. Even without the 3 goals, it's safely over the 120 mark. So if he was a C option, would have been great. But unfortunately, he did play on the Thursday night, so he didn't really have that option. So disappointing. If I had 50 extra points, would have got me close to that 2,000 mark, and definitely would have been top 1K round ranking, which would have been my best so far this season. This is close to my best, but not quite my best from my knowledge. I haven't actually double checked, but yeah. Yeah, just a little bit of a step off the pace where other teams would definitely be pushing those top echelon players. So oh well, that is fantasy as it goes. But yeah, that was my plus three. My negative three, where do I go? Probably looking at Sinclair. He was my lowest score on field this week with that 64, so that did drop off. And surprisingly, two players over $1 million dropped off in my best 18 this week, being Sinclair and also Max Holmes. So that 71 didn't count for me. So my scores that dropped off was 64, 66 from Angus Clark on the bench, and then obviously Max Holmes 71. So my lowest score, I believe, was a 76 combined from both Daniel and Ned Long. So not the worst week overall. So it's a very nice high floor there, but considering I had 19 very good players, it's probably expected that it should have been around that 80 mark anyway. So yeah, sort of expected that, to be honest. So overall, not too disappointed that they both dropped disappointing scores. I still think they'll bounce back at some point. They were tough matchups. Sinclair, but he can get it. Just 64 didn't really show much of a hunger, which is disappointing in that game, especially when his teammate Nasai Wanganimulera nearly doubled him in score with 125. He just is a weapon at the moment. What is he averaging in the last three? 123, just getting it done. Nearly up to 110 now for the season. Yeah, he's definitely a fantasy player for us for a long period of time now. So yeah, Sinclair can get my negative three. I already spoke about the captains. My trade review. So overall, I'm pretty happy with my trades. Like, going Max Gorn to Luke Jackson definitely was a decent play. It has sort of caught me out a little bit, but I did always have a bit of a plan of what I wanted to do with uh, trading another Ruckman, because at the end of the day, Jackson in the ruck spot is going to probably lose me a 10 to 15 points week on, week out, just because he's not going to be a solid 110 to 115 player like the rest of the Ruckman can, right? He's better off in my forward line, so I will be shifting him forward this week, hopefully, as long as my trade plans go well. He will be shifting into my forward line, and I will be bringing in another ruck uh, this week. Hopefully, we'll see how sort of trades plan out and how things develop throughout the week. So that's the plan. Bit of a risky one, but happy with that overall. And then I also brought in Kobe McKerch and Callum Mills. Both went extremely well. McKerch went with the 99. Would have been nice just to tick that one extra point just to get that 100, get the three figures. But no, I'm still very happy with him. Again, the role is exactly what we expect. High amount of disposals, just no marks and very little tackles. If he's in the right spot, he sometimes gets the tackles, but they're not relying on those sources of points. So he's just purely on kickouts and from plenty of handball receives. So uh, disappointing, because obviously if he got some plus sixes every now and then, he would be pushing the top six guys, but just unfortunately he's not part of that game just yet. Whether that develops through the remainder of the season as they start to slow down potentially, just roll the bodies over. But North are going to keep attacking, they're going to keep developing, so I don't see that happening at any stage, but we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, very happy I grabbed him, went up to 34k, went up the 45k this week. I don't know why it says that there. And Callum Mills as well. Very happy I grabbed him. He is a huge target for those that don't have him so far already. So he'll be a huge target this week. I think a lot of people are targeting him just with at his price point. He's very achievable. And the ultimate reason why I went with him is just he's kept on the side. He's an accumulator. He knows how to rack up the pill. It honestly could have been a much bigger score. Like the 96 probably was a bit unders for when he was on like 80. I think it was on 85 at 3/4 times. I think he only had like 11 point last quarter. Just was very quiet. They sort of put the Q on the rack a little bit as they were up a fair bit in that last bit. Pretty much Sydney dominated the entire game. They should have won by 10 goals, but just inaccuracy put them out of it a little bit. But he didn't really need to do a huge amount in that last quarter, which is disappointing to see. Because Blakey just absolutely ripped it up there in the last quarter. But yeah, I think he was getting a bit more attention. I won't say like it was a tag, but it was just someone that was sort of standing next to him at all times, not allowing him to be a damaging kick, because Mills is quite a good ball user, so they don't want him to be someone that has the ball in hand. So oppositions may put time into him every now and then, particularly off the halfback. So yeah, definitely a target for a lot of people, because this is the price point and he's going to make a bit of money as well and can be close enough to the top six for a little while longer until we start to get into luxury season, which just quietly is next week. So that definitely came up pretty quickly. So he's a huge target, and I'm very glad I traded him in ultimately. So yeah, happy I grabbed all three of those guys. But I guess in hindsight, I probably should have just grabbed like a Grundy and a Jackson last week, and then obviously one of the rookies that went well. Either way, why is that not defenders? So either a Rolliston or a May, one of the two I could have definitely grabbed last week. Just didn't have confidence that either of them were going to hold their spot. Another week into it, I'm now confident that both of them potentially hold their spot post buy. So they're probably both pretty big targets coming out of their buy. Hopefully you already have one and you can grab the other. But if you're like me and you don't have either, you got to make a decision, I think, next week, because we're back to 2 trades next week. Got to keep that in mind. So you're probably only going to be able to grab one. So make your plans now to do that. But my preference at this stage is probably Rolliston, just with a better roll, probably a bit more consistency, and the run is much better in terms of that roll. So, but we'll have to wait and see how it develops. That's a next week problem. But like I said, if I went a Grundy and a Jackson as a premium forward, it probably would have equaled out very similar in terms of points on field, but also cash generation at the same time. So really is a null and void sort of trade, but and I'm missing probably a vital rookie that went up a lot of money this week. And I'm sort of now caught in a bit of a situation where I need to trade in I don't need to trade in a Ruckman, but for maximum points, I should be trading in Ruckman this week and moving Jackson forward because he is better use to me as a forward in a line that struggles to score points rather than in a premium line like the Ruck spot that averages 110, 115 and has some big ceiling scores at the same time. So uh, probably not the best trade in terms of what I could have done. In hindsight, obviously, it's great thing. But overall, very happy with how the side is going. I won't dive too deep into player by player. I think we all, at the stage of the season, they're premiums. We know what their role is. No real need to dive into it. I just guess we got to be careful of some tags up and coming, but that's something we'll have to dive into a little bit later. This week will be interesting, just with a few premiums that are obviously on the buy. Last buy around. There's a lot of premiums on the buy, as I've been speaking about for way too long now, probably 10 weeks up at this point. So that'll be an interesting point where are we looking to jump off, Zach Merritt, who's been very poor, even a Dunkley, who I have that was initially in my plans to be traded out. Has that changed? I'm still tossing that up whether that is or that isn't, but he put up his best score for his second best score for the season with a 124, so that was nice to see him bounce back, and he's probably one of the ones that contributed to me having a decent score, because at the end of the day, the ceiling scores are what really matter when it comes to these buy rounds. And you can see I had quite a few with Nasiah, Sheasel, Dunkley, Bontempelli. Doherty was obviously amazing in that game. Jackson, and also Kennedy as well. So had a few 110 plus scores in there, which ultimately contributes to having those bigger scores, because at the end of the day, like these lower 70 scores or even 90s, they're not going to be massive points in terms of my counting. It's really the ceiling scores. So, but yeah, that's enough about that. Already sort of spoken about my problem areas. I am missing a few of those prime rookies at this stage, so my trade plans will be sort of looking into that. So I might as well get into my trade plans already, because I've got a few different scenarios that we need to talk through. So how my team is structuring up. Nice to be able to bring all those guys back on. Well, just basically Dawson and Rankin came back into my field, but I've got Bont, Nick Martin, Dunkley, wherever he is. Did I trade him? I'd have traded him. That's right. And obviously Holmes on the bench as well. So I've got 3 or 4 premiums this week. So we'll see how that sort of plays out. But trade scenarios this week is very interesting, because I think it's a very common situation that you've got 3 different scenarios this week, realistically. So one is either you're downgrading 3 sort of rookies, like a Clark, a Cleary, a Lohman, and those likes of guys, even a Johnson, for example, all these guys that are sort of 450k-ish, and that allows you to get up to maybe a 900k premium, depending if you had a bit of money in the bank here and there, and you're not sort of getting to the top echelon sort of guys, and it really depends on if you're trading in it depends where your your last premium is on the field. So if you're trading in a Ruckman, you probably need to pay close to 1.1, if not $1.05 million. So it's not quite enough. If you're playing in the forward line, then that probably works out well. You can grab the likes of a Petrarca if you don't have him, or if you don't have Jackson, he's a bit more expensive than that, but you could go with him. And you could pick a pretty much a forward guy that could go quite well for the remainder of the year. Defenders, very similar to Rucks, you probably have to pay quite a big premium at $1 million price tag to get those top echelon guys. So you probably don't have quite enough money to get to those real good guys. So you're probably in a bit of a tricky situation there, where either you have to trade in a basement rookie guy and miss one of these decent rookies, like a Liddy, or a Dewar, who's an interesting prospect at the same time. Just give them the break even. So that's one scenario. That probably gets you your best back to your best 22. So having 22 full premiums on your field when it comes to next week, because you've got to keep that in mind. We are back to best 22 come next week. So ultimately, that's what you should be prioritizing, because you don't want to be left having a rookie on field come out of the buys, because then you're dropping major points from a rookie to a premium, unless you're very confident in, say, a Tom McCarthy, who's potentially your last rookie on field, who obviously could be quite a decent scorer. We've only seen one game from him though, so how consistent is it going to be? Who knows? But we know he has the right role, playing as that halfback kick and taker, so he's definitely got the right role there. He's got Collingwood straight out of the bye this week, so I expect the Bulls going to spend a lot of time down there, so that could mean 10 plus kick-ins for them. Whether they're accurate or not, it's hard to tell. Then he plays, obviously, the Giants straight out of the buys as well, so that will be when you start to rely on him as a scoring potential and don't have the safety buffer of potentially his scoring dropping off. So you got to have a lot of confidence that he's going to be putting up some decent scores, hopefully an 80 plus, but there's no certainty, and these rookies can definitely drop some bad scores very quickly. He's probably the only one that I'd have confidence at this stage being on field. That if you're running a rookie on field in best 22 rounds, he's the only one I'd have in that category. I wouldn't be trusting, a Liddy or a Sullivan, obviously, for all those different reasons. Even Kyle Lohman, if you're looking to hold him this week. Port Adelaide on the week in round 17. Interesting matchup, should go okay, but I can't imagine he's going to be putting up 80s every week. He's only put up 80 once this year. 79 was his next best. So, yeah, he could definitely drop a dirty 30 on you pretty quickly. So, I wouldn't trust him on field either. So, it's pretty much prioritizing getting your last premier off field if you can. It's whether you take the hit this week, and this is the other scenario, is instead of grabbing that 900k primo and getting that premium this week and getting your 22, is do you do like a triple downgrade, grabbing all the cash generation options that we're looking at. A Liddy is probably number one target for most people. But then you've also got these other guys that have very good break evens, like a Rolliston, a Dua, a May, all with negative 10 plus break evens, and then bank a huge amount of coin for next week to grab that final premium when you only have 2 trades. This does come with some risk because, again, we're back to 2 trades next week. So if you have any injuries or have any forced trades, and one of your trades is already locked up to be moved, and do you have enough money banked to be able to go from a Finn O'Sullivan, who may be your most expensive rookie at this stage, up to that major premium? It's very unlikely. You don't have 500k sitting in your bank unless you do. I think that would be pretty ridiculous. I think at most you're probably carrying 300k into next week, and that's not going to be enough to get these guys from 500k rookie up to those premium guys, unless there's a real cheap guy that you're really targeting the week after. So you got to make those plans in advance. That's what I'm sort of working through right now. What is my best play this week so that allows me to get my next premium next week? And that's sort of where I'm leaning at the moment. The other alternative last trade I had is sidewaysing a underpriced premium, like a Merritt and a Dunkley, for example. I think a lot of people have Merritt, and a lot of people are looking at moving off of him just with how poor he has been. And for the most part, I don't disagree. I think he has been extremely poor and dropping some very poor scores, and it's evident that his role has changed from what he used to be, and he's just being flicked around and being stuffed around with his role, and it's not always allowing him to have access to the pill. So for those reasons alone, I'd be willing to jump off. It's unfortunate that he has dropped so much coin, and now he is extremely cheap, and now essentially to sideways him to another decent premium, you're probably having to put some money on top of his head, even to a Butters, for example. It's a similar price, but is Butters going to be best 8 midfielder for the remainder of the year? There's no certainty, and there's no certainty that Butters is going to be any better than Merritt this week, with coming up against potentially a chin cotter tag. So I use that as an example just because it is a very similar price, and I think a lot of people are looking at that this week. So I just take a breather and slow down. So yeah, I don't disagree that Merritt can be traded. I think he's a prime target to go, and Dunkley, in my situation, I am looking at trading him out. At this stage, this is what I planned before the buy, so I sort of just threw this in here to show you this is what my plan was coming out of last week. Whether this sticks around or not, I'm not certain, but we'll have to wait and see. But ultimately, I think this first trade is locked in. I want Liddy. He's the obviously one that's got to play this week. He looked really good in that game. He's looked good for a couple of weeks now, and he's just putting himself in the right spots. Looks very composed. So he's definitely one I'm wanting to get. Clark probably just unlucky to go, but 35 break even, probably only has potentially 40k still to make, but is it really worth holding him for the next 2 weeks to get an extra 40k? Probably not in my situation. I think he can go. Cleary obviously is a red dot. He can go either way, so I think I'm leaning towards trading him out more than a Loman who potentially could stay within my team. I know a lot of people are tossing and turning whether to trade him out or not. I'm neither here or there. If he works for your trades to go, I think he can go because there's every chance that he comes back in round 17 after his bye, drops say a 40, and then his cash generation is dead, and you got to trade him out for 10k more than what he is now. So it's really not worth holding him for 2 weeks unless you see him going up, 100, 150k more. If you think he can go on a big run. But just looking at the fixture, he does have some tougher matchups coming in terms of just football competitiveness. Poor if there are any chance of making finals, they're going to really stand up, but they've been extremely poor. Obviously lost against Sydney on the weekend, but quietly Sydney is starting to find some form with some major players back. Carlton, they're just a joke, losing to North at the moment, so that should be okay. Western Bulldogs should be a lot more competitive. Suns, we know how good they are as well. And then obviously Collingwood and then Sydney as well. So a very tough final 6 matches. It's really you probably the next 2 is a potential that he has some decent scores in him where he can make some coins. So I can see the argument of holding him. It's just whether is it worth that point to gain maybe 70k or something like that, whatever he's going to make over the next couple of weeks. So I say if he works for your trades, he can go. So I've traded Cleary instead, and at the moment I've traded in Billy Wilson just as a placeholder. Now, I guess it raises an interesting discussion about, are we okay now with throwing away positions just to make our team fit better? Because at the end of the day, I need a defender rookie. There's no defender rookies that are putting their hands up besides obviously a Tom McCarthy, who I think is a must-have this week. I probably should have said it off the top, but he is a must-have this week. If you do not have him, you must trade him in. So make your plans accordingly. I'm sure you made your plans last week with that in mind. So get that one involved. But I'm going to need to trade in the defender rookie at some stage because even next week, I'm trading out Finn O'Sullivan, who has the most money on his head. So I'm running out of those defender rookies that are going to be able to sit in that spot. Obviously, McCarthy probably rolls back and plays as that looping option in my D7 spot. But I need someone at D8 that probably doesn't need to play for the remainder of the year. He can just be a looping option. So, and ideally has some DPP that I can flick around if need be. So Billy Wilson's sort of in that spot for now. I have not done any research in terms of if he plays mostly Saturdays, mostly Sundays, so he's a viable loop option. He's just someone I slotted in there at the moment. I will probably do a bit more research to find out who is the best option for the remainder of the year with some late games. I think St Kilda have some very late games, so whether there's a defender rookie from St Kilda that has DPP that I can use as a dead rookie. But I do think there's nothing wrong with trading in a dead rookie now when we're looking at looping options and looking at obviously needing some captain loops come in out of the buy as well. I know we have Harry Boyd, but there's not always a chance where maybe your two prime Ruckman play before Harry Boyd, so you got to lock away one of them on the bench, and that throws up some issues as well. So there's not always the best scenario. So it's always nice to have a bit of a backup. At the moment, I've also got the likes of Ted Closey, but he's also very close to playing each and every week and can always be a late in, so he's not always the best one to have as a looping option. So all I wanted to say is that there's nothing wrong with throwing away a position at this stage in the season, as we have a complete team in cash generation. isn't a huge priority. While it is nice, it's definitely not a huge priority when it comes to now having a best 22. Considering we probably have quite a few cash generators or in our team, McCarthy, a lot of people are trading in. Finn O'Sullivan's still generating some coin. Johnson's still doing it. Liddy, Loman, and plus all the mid-price guys, and Mills, McKercher, Doherty, Long, all these sort of guys are still making some decent coin. So we've got some cash generations options in my team, whereas I don't really need at this stage, and I'm happy to throw away position. So I've got him in there, and I've targeted Brody Grundy. Obviously, in hindsight, I said that I probably should have traded him in last week, but I'm doing it this week. Just he's the one I feel comfortable with. I know I wasn't a huge fan of it last week, and it's a bit hypocritical because he come up against a tougher matchup for the remainder. This week rather than last week. But I was just able to look at his way he's moving and the more responsibility he has, looking and diving a little bit deeper into his data. I'm just feel a bit more comfortable with picking him as a remaining ruck for the remainder of the year. It's really a toss-up between him and Rowan Marshall for me. I'm not 100% certain that this is the way I want to go. Rowan Marshall is, I think, like 70k cheaper or something like that. Yeah, so something like that. So I could go that way. It would make my upgrades a little bit easier when it comes to next week, but I'm just not certain with Rowan Marshall at this stage. With the way that he is still moving, he had a poor first quarter in that game. It just didn't really. He picked up in the last 3 quarters, but still just didn't look like the prime Rowan Marshall to me. So I'm still not certain that that's the way I want to go. And obviously, there's some concerns of St Kilda at all times, just going to the kids and whatnot. So I think I want to avoid him for now. And I think Brody Grundy's the one, particularly because Sydney are still in the fight for finals. If they're any chance of getting there, they're going to need this man to play at his best. And he has been playing his best for the last 6 weeks. And that's really a reason why he has shot up so quickly. And now he's priced at $1.1 million. He's also taking a lot more of the ruck load, which is something that I will show you here. This is where he's really peaked in his performance. He's just gone up that a little bit of a tick in terms of his ruck contest. He's around the ball a little bit more. He's having a bit more of a license to just grab the ball himself and get it forward. So for all those sort of reasons, I'm feeling a little bit more confident with him as a prospect to be for the remainder of the year as a ruckman that I can potentially go with. Yes, he's not cheap, and again, ideally I should have grabbed him for 50k cheaper last week. That was definitely a good move if you went there, but I'm happy to make right that wrong this week and jump on him this week. That does come at the expense of Josh Dunkley though, who I don't feel great about trading out. Obviously, he's pretty much bottomed out now in terms of coin, and he's probably a bit of a target for the remainder of the year. But I'm looking at his run for midfielders for the remainder of the year, and it's not amazing. It's not great. You got Port Adelaide straight out of the bye with Carlton, Western Bulldogs. So he only has one decent matchup for the remainder of the year. That is green. All of them are either neutrals or hard matchups. So I'm using that as a bit of a switch to be able to go, okay, Josh Dunkley allows me to make this move that I can get this guy that I'm looking at in Grundy, and it also means it allows me to bank some coin for next week and be able to grab the player that I want next week, which will obviously be a Rolliston and a 900k player. So have that in mind. Yeah, so I guess I'll review my trades for next week. I am targeting Tom Stewart as my final premium for the year. Just looking at his run as a designated kicker for Geelong, obviously amazing run that he comes up against Richmond straight out of the bye, so very easy matchup. But I'll show you his run for the remainder of the year. It is by far just amazing. So after the bye, he's got Richmond. GWS is a bit of a tougher one, but you take what you get. St Kilda, North, Port Adelaide, Essendon, Sydney, and Richmond. He can probably essentially be my 23rd premium by this sort of stage in the season when I have a full team of premiums, none of these mid-prices. So I think he's one I can grab now at a very cheap price. Well, sorry, next week at a very cheap price. So that's where my sort of trades are looking at. For next week, it'll be Stewart and Rolston, and that should be enough for me to go from a Finn O'Sullivan and a Loman as well. So having enough coin in the bank to do that. So that's where I'm sort of at with my trades. Fingers crossed that all comes true. But we'll see how sort of things roll up in terms of team announcements this week. I don't think I have any injury concerns. I think there's going to be some pretty big scores ahead of in the week. Just with Dawson's up against Richmond. Dacos is up against West Coast Eagles, so very good captain options. Brayshaw's up against St Kilda. I think there's going to be some massive scores this week, so we'll have to stay tuned for that. Captains will be very interesting with how they go, but ultimately Mills is a huge target. Tom McCarthy is a must-have if you don't have him. Fingers crossed Doherty holds his spot. I don't think you need to jump off long if those that answer that question. I think he held him through his bye, so you might as well hold on to him for a little while longer now for that decent run, probably for the next 5 weeks. If he starts to drop off, in the next couple, then there's potential. But for now, I'm willing to hold him. It was one poor game, and even then, it wasn't the worst game in history. So I'm happy with him there. But besides that, I think I've gone on long enough for this video. Hopefully you guys have enjoyed. Please leave a like, subscribe, do all those great things. I will see you Wednesday for trade mode. Any questions down below, drop them there and I will respond when I can. But yeah, all the best guys. Hopefully you had a good week. Cheers. Bye.